Looking at music. I believe all art forms are based on the same structures, but we all find different ways to work with them. John Dowell. Dowell continued his studies in drawing and printmaking as a graduate student at the University of Washington. One evening, a neighbor heard Dowell listening to Johann Sebastian Bach's Suites for unaccompanied violoncello, followed by a piece by jazz trumpeter Ornette Coleman. The neighbor investigated this musical juxtaposition. He first knocked on Dowell's door. Later, he brought his own albums to share. This was Dowell's introduction to avant-garde music, including German composer Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, composer and theorist John Cage, and Seattle composer and University of Washington professor Gerald Ketchley. Dowell began to spend more time with graduate students studying music composition. Just as he had done with mentor Charles Pridgeon, he discussed structure and form with his growing circle of friends. Through these conversations, Dowell recognized the similarities between music composition and visual composition. Dowell termed his realization, looking at music. Interviewer: Are you trained in music? Dowell: Just 700 record albums trained, no classes. Object 8. John Dowell, Sol Coltrane, Etching, 1967. Dowell started working on Sol Coltrane the day he learned jazz musician John Coltrane, 1926 to 1967, had died. Coltrane moved to Philadelphia in 1943 and began musical training in the city. Dowell was inspired by Coltrane, having seen him perform jazz in clubs in Philadelphia and New York. Gift of Francis Savage, 2021. Print and Picture Collection. Object 9. John Dowell, Shep's Ham Bone, Etching, 1967. Archie Shepp is a jazz saxophonist. He has played a central part in the development of avant-garde jazz since the 1960s. Although born in Florida, Shepp was raised in Philadelphia. Dowell's etching is inspired by Ham Bone, a 12-minute instrumental song from Shepp's album Firebird. Gift of Francis Savage, 2021. Print and Picture Collection. Object 10. John Dowell, Yeah, Jan Lee, Etching, 1969. The title of this etching refers to Jan Lee, one of Dowell's sisters. Dowell and his 6 siblings grew up in a household with his father, grandmother, and 3 aunts. Gift of Francis Savage, 2021. Print and Picture Collection. Object 11. John Dowell, Swamp Flower, Etching, 1968. Swamp Flower is inspired by the jazz musician Charles Lloyd and his album Forest Flower, which was recorded live at the Monterey Jazz Festival in 1966. Gift of Francis Savage, 2021. Print and Picture Collection. Object 12. John Dowell, Jive B.M., Etching, 1967. Gift of Francis Savage, 2021. Print and Picture Collection. Object 13. John Dowell, Sounds, Etching, 1967. Gift of Francis Savage, 2021. Print and Picture Collection. Object 14. John Dowell, Kush, Etching, 1967. Grammy Award winner Dizzy Gillespie, 1917 to 1993, was an early pioneer of Afro-Cuban jazz. Kush is a piece of music by Gillespie that is inspired by and dedicated to Mother Africa. He is remembered by both critics and fans alike as one of the greatest jazz trumpeters of all time. Gift of Francis Savage, 2021. Print and Picture Collection. Objects 15 through 20. John Dowell, Selections from Visual Poems, Portfolio, 1970 through 1971. While in Nashville, Tennessee for a show at Fisk University, Dowell made a drawing for his wife Betty on ordinary lined paper in lieu of a postcard, which she subsequently hung in her studio. After seeing it daily upon returning, Dowell was inspired to use horizontal lines in his printmaking. These horizontal lines are present in Visual Poems, a portfolio of 8 color lithographs and 1 original ink drawing. Instead of hearing the poems spoken, the viewer is seeing the poems. This portfolio has numerous musical touchstones. Just Heard Bessie and Coltrane Sonnet are references to musicians Bessie Smith and John Coltrane. Other works are named after song titles like Drownin' on Dry Land by Albert King and The Sky is Cryin' by Elmore James. Dowell was printer-in-residence and head of lithography at the 35th Venice Biennale when he started working on visual poems. Only 20 sets were created, and the ink and watercolor drawing is unique to each edition. Gift of Francis Savage, 2020. Print and Picture Collection. Object 15. John Dowell, Drownin' on Dry Land. Lithograph, 1970. Object 16. John Dowell, Just Heard Bessie. Lithograph, 1971. Object 17. John Dowell, The Sky is Cryin'. Lithograph, 1971. Object 18. John Dowell, Coltrane Sonnet. Lithograph, 1971. Object 19. John Dowell. Lithograph, 1971. Object 20. John Dowell. Modes. Watercolor, 1971.